All right, you're in Canton, and so you're in the shadow of Cleveland with the Cleveland Browns. What is the feeling? Do you get a sense of what Browns fans think will happen with Deshaun Watson?
Well, it's been a roller coaster this week for Browns fans because they went from feeling relief on Monday when the decision from Judge Sue L. Robinson was that Watson should be suspended 6 games to now this sense of foreboding that because the NFL has exercised its right to appeal the decision to the NFL itself, and the NFL still clearly wants to impose a significant punishment on Deshaun Watson, and the game is rigged. I mean, the union agreed to it. This is the bottom line. It doesn't matter who makes the first decision. What matters is who makes the second decision. And Judge Robinson gave the NFL everything it needs from a factual standpoint. Her most important aspect of her decision were her factual findings, because those are binding on appeal. And she found that he did it. She found that he violated the personal conduct policy in 3 different ways. She called it nonviolent sexual assault for victims that had their evidence presented in this process. And now the commissioner can do whatever he wants, or the designee can do whatever he or she wants. And remember this too, Dan, because it really didn't jump off the page. The judge basically found that Deshaun Watson lied. And that is not going to go over well with 345 Park Avenue when you are in a setting like this and you're not telling the truth. This is your chance to come clean and get a lesser punishment. If you don't come clean, the punishment is not going to be reduced.
I think you said that you think the NFL is going to drop the hammer. And this is
I think they are.
Before,
I think he's going to be I think it's going to be full year.
Okay. Now, if you're, let's say, and you're a lawyer, if you're with Deshaun Watson, what do you do now, today, that maybe can help circumvent or mitigate a year-long suspension?
Well, I mean, today, short term, what I would try to do is convince the commissioner to exercise his ability to designate someone else and hope that that someone else can be prevailed upon. Because if it's ultimately the commissioner handling the appeal, why would it be less than a year? If the employees who ultimately report to the commissioner have been consistently asking for 1 year, I assume they got their directive somehow, some way from the top of the organization. So if the guy sitting at the top of the organization who has previously said, yeah, go try to get a year, yeah, ask for a year, if he's the one making the decision, it's more likely to be a year. So I would try to craft a letter or do something to try to shame him into handing it to someone else who may be slightly less biased, not as close to the action, maybe somebody who hasn't been involved in making decisions about the league's approach to this. That's all you can do for now. Otherwise, it's sit back and wait.
All right, football-wise, the Cleveland Browns, will they be content with Jacoby Brissett as opposed to maybe trying to go out and bring in Jimmy Garoppolo if Deshaun's down for a year?
Well, that's a great point, Dan, because earlier this week, the head coach, Kevin Stefanski, was asked about whether or not they have multiple plans based upon what the ultimate decision is. And he said they do. And I thought all along, okay, Brissett makes sense if it's 6 games. If it's full season, that changes your analysis. And I think they are sort of in the we'll cross that bridge when we come to it mode. But if they do find themselves in a spot where Watson is out for the year and there's nothing they can do about it, how do you not consider what would be a win-win? Garoppolo gets a year to come in and play. He can reestablish his career and then go off somewhere else as a free agent next year when Watson comes back. The only hitch is this. They got a 5th-round pick for Baker Mayfield that can become a 4th-round pick, and they're paying $10.5 million of his salary when they unloaded him to the Panthers. I don't think they want to get hijacked by the 49ers. And the best timeline for the Browns would be they don't find out that Watson's out for the year until after the 49ers cut Jimmy Garoppolo. But I don't think the plane's going to land that way. I think the Browns are going to know if they lose him for the full year, while the 49ers still have Garoppolo under contract unless they trade him to somebody else, and then that ends the whole question.
Give the audience an idea of how long this appeal is going to take. That when would a ruling happen with the commissioner?
Tomorrow is the deadline for the union to submit its paperwork in response to what was submitted yesterday by the league. There's no hearing on appeal. There's no new evidence. The evidence is already done, and it's favorable to the NFL. The CBA and the personal conduct policy require an expedited process, but it doesn't say 3 days, 5 days, whatever, just expedited, like hurry it up. And it makes sense because people need to make plans. The Browns need to make a plan. People need to know what's going on. And there's still that possibility, Dan, of the NFLPA doing what it did for Tom Brady, doing what it did for Ezekiel Elliott, going to court to fight this, and along the way trying to get a temporary injunction aimed at allowing Deshaun Watson to play while this all works out. But if that happens, because a big misconception about this, he won't play week 1 because his 6-game suspension isn't being challenged. Unless the NFLPA decides to challenge that, and they've already said they won't, this is about week 7, not about week 1.
No, that's a great point.